2019. We will now move on to item 3 on our agenda. Next on our joint study session agenda, the City Attorney's Office will provide an update on the negotiations for an agreement with Rainier Connect related to the operation and use of CLIC network. And the representatives of Rainier Connect will provide an overview of the transition if the agreement is approved. Right now, I'd like to call on Chief Deputy City Attorney Chris Bacha to begin the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the Council, Chair, members of the Board. Chris Bacha, Chief Deputy City Attorney. Today you'll hear a presentation from Rainier Connect regarding their concept of what a transition would be like if the City Council and Board were to approve an agreement that would provide capacity to Rainier Connect to provide broadband and other services over the CLIC commercial network. In terms of the status of the negotiations over those agreements, negotiations are moving right along. We're probably a little bit over optimistic in thinking that we can get through it in 90 days. There are some complexities, and quite frankly, there's no cookie cutter approach to drafting these agreements. The 12 policy goals of the Council and Board are not common in these types of agreements, and so we spent a lot of time developing the concepts and the language around those concepts of the 12 policy goals, and that's one of the reasons why it's taking as long as it is to get through the negotiations. And so not a lot has changed since the last time I spoke to you. So rather than spend time going through what you've already heard, we've asked Rainier Connect to come here and provide a presentation. They prepared a PowerPoint, and they'll describe, as I said before, their concept of what this transition might look like. So I'll introduce Brian Haynes and his folks that are here and have them come up here and take over.
Well, hello. Thank you for having us. We couldn't be more thankful to be here and for the opportunity to serve our community. So, with this, we have a pretty short slide deck just going through some of the messaging and transition items that we're taking start of. I'd really like to start by just saying how great it's been to work with the city staff, utility board, and staff. Everybody that we've worked with so far has been incredible, and working on the overall goal to move this thing forward. So with that, we have
Right there.
Oh, here?
oh, look at that.
No, I can manage it.
All right.
I can manage this.
Great. So as we move through this over the next several months, we're going to start adding messaging into bills and by email and coordinated partnerships with CLIC. We're short-winded. Feel free to ask questions. We're going to continue all of the current efforts that CLIC's done throughout the community, like Movies in the Park, and continue messaging through those. And we're looking for any other opportunities throughout the community that we can start doing joint messaging. So, other than press releases, announcements, and we're just going to continue to work closely with existing staff to get our message out. I guess it's a really big point that the day that there is a transition, we're not going to make any immediate changes to any of the service offerings. Nobody's service will be interrupted. We're going to continue many of the important programs that CLIC's forged throughout the community, like the Purple Perks, but nobody is going to see any changes immediately. And with that, I'm going to hand this over. I probably should have got Amanda Singleton and Lori Hills. They're truly the brains of our operation, so they can go through the billing, transfer.
Yeah, we are working with the CLIP teams today. We're meeting regularly. We're exploring the programs like the Purple Perks, how customers communicate, how they're used to receiving messaging so that we can maintain that and keep things familiar and keep them informed. When the time comes for a transition, we'll do redirects on websites, emails, phone numbers go forward. They'll get splash pages that welcome them as CLIP customers, so there's familiarity. We'll have a FAQ page. There's always a lot of questions, and we try to stay ahead of them. There's customer excitement. We've been getting calls already, so it kind of gives us a little preview to questions that they might have when the time comes.
And then we'll have community announcements and news releases and work with local newspapers to get out the information. And make sure that everybody's aware of how to reach us and what we're offering.
So after the transition, when the billing transition begins, we'll have bill messages. We'll work again with the quick billing system that's there, so that messaging comes on the old system as well as the new system. So there's notice, and they can anticipate what's coming. We'll have, of course, bill pay options. We'll still have the same variety. They can come into the office. We're here in Tacoma. We have other offices in the South Sound area. They can, of course, mail them, do online payments, auto recurring payments. When we have a new customer in the billing system, they have a how to read my bill, where to look for pertinent information if they want to set up the online billing, where to find that information. So we try to put all that information out there so it's easily accessible. The bill will come from Rainier Connect. Like I mentioned earlier, we have a local office, and that will still be there. We have 24/7 support by phone, and they're able to support all of the services that we provide.
Yeah, so once we go through the transition, we'll have consistent upgrades to the network. We'll see speed upgrades and then new products as they come to market. We have some products on our own plant that aren't available in Tacoma yet, and so we're looking at how we can best bring those to market here as well. And then it's technology, so it changes quickly, and we just stay in front of it. We currently, on our own plant, in other South Sound locations, our residential speeds are up to 500 megs on cable modem and 1,000 or gigabit speed on our fiber services. We also have Stream TV, which is an app-based television platform, and then we have telephone services as well. And it will finally be a single provider for all communication services, internet, phone, and television, and whatever else comes after that.
Any questions?
All right. You're right, that was very quick. Deputy Mayor McCarthy.
Thank you so much, and thanks for being here. A couple questions. One just has to do with the branding. How do you plan to brand, the product, the Clip brand? Does it remain intact? Clip brought to you by Rainier Connect, or is there a plan for that, or is it purple?
And at a minimum, like I said, there won't be much change at all for an extended period of time as we evaluate that, but we will keep Click as a prominent part of the brand for a long time.
Okay. And then second question just has to do, one of the things I think is important, for customers to know that, things are gonna stay the same for a period of time. At least I think that's really important, but I also think some of them, it's important to message what's on the horizon in terms of improvement of service. I see most customers being most concerned about cable TV, right? Because this is the one thing that is provided exclusively by the utility right now. And so not just knowing that will continue as it is, but that it will be improved. What do you see happening with the cable TV service
Sure.
in the short and long term?
Well, much like old telephone service, the POTS line, which you pick up in the rotary dial, And the video delivery or cable TV market is going through that next generational phase. And it's a streaming product, but the way we've architected it and the way we're going to roll it out in Tacoma is going to feel very much like an old cable TV service. We have, whether people are progressive and are able to use an app on a smart TV or they need a set-top box, we've identified ways that we can make it feel very much like the existing service. Right? So it's really, it can be the next generation and simplified to the point where somebody just can press the on a regular old remote.
It just might come through your,
Yeah.
let's say your smart TV, you don't have.
Absolutely. It's just like a new age telephone service. You know, the only time you don't know that it's an old school service is when the power goes out and you don't have a battery in your phone, right? So it's going to be very much like that. It's a large technological leap that allows the network to take that same leap with it.
Right. Yeah, I'm curious about that. Is there something to compare it to? Just because for those of us who've had cable TV, you know, with the box and are used to that, you know.
It can be just like that.
Right.
You know, we were testing a couple different boxes in our office, and we can make it feel exactly like a cable service currently. Or you can have an app on your Apple TV or Fire Stick or Roku, you know, any of the smart services, and you go right into the app, and the app turns into a cable guide, and you can go find your favorite shows, you can find the last channels that you watch. Generally, people only watch 5 or 6 channels as a family. So technology allows some of those things to be helpful, right? So you don't have to look through 200 some odd channels to find HGTV anymore. Or remember that it's 285 or 37 or whatever it is.
But in the short term, you know nothing about this. When the city moves that kind of cable book of business over to Rainier Connect, is that kind of a seamless?
We will make it very
transition?
seamless, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
We're already a cable provider in rural Pierce County, so we already have a lot of those agreements in place and have the ability to manage that product. So we are going to make that very seamless.
Well, great, that's all I have. Look forward to the partnership.
Yeah, thank you.
Move forward.
Great, any other questions? Yes, Board Member Logan.
Thank you. Just a follow-up on Deputy Mayor's comment, so that'll include local programming?
Absolutely.
Okay. Then on the website that you have, will there be, maybe this is a question for city staff too, but will there be links between the websites, so if somebody logs into the city's website, they can get to your website?
That's a really good question. I think we'll probably have to get back to you on that.
Okay, that'd be something to look into. And then my final question was on your 24/7 phone service. Is that local?
Part of it is. Part of it's the same outsourced provider that Click currently uses.
Yes. All right. Thank you.
Councilmember Mello.
Thank you, Mayor Wooders. Thanks for being with us. What I hear top of mind from customers and future customers of yours, or I guess jointly ours, are two major things. One is the quality of customer service, just generally speaking of getting internet service. Quality of customer service, and they can talk to a human being and pretty easily navigate through whatever their problem is, no matter their proficiency. And secondly, a rate schedule, that their rates aren't going to skyrocket. Can you speak to both of those? I know you can't predict the future in terms of rates because of cost, but just generally speaking, maybe looking in the rearview mirror, what kind of certainty can you, at this juncture, can you help assure us around a rate schedule and quality of customer service?
Well, customer service is the easiest thing to guarantee. We live in the communities we serve, and we're very active in those communities. So when we bump into people at the grocery store, the last thing we want to hear is the problems that they're having. We fix those.
Welcome to our world.
Yeah, it's one of the few things that I can sympathize with you on, in a small extent. But we strive to serve every customer as best we can and to make their day, to go out of our way to make sure that their whatever interaction that they have with us makes their day a little bit better.
And do you anticipate being able to, I don't even know, but I think we know that anecdotally about your company. Do you anticipate being able to make metrics about customer service, response time?
We currently keep metrics on response time, on hold time.
And you'll be able to make those public to the TPU board?
Yeah, I mean, if you just stop by our office, you can look at our TV screen, we monitor it live, and we're very proud of that. But again, my grandparents are still customers, so we know a lot about it, and you know, a lot of our customer base in rural Pierce County is still part of that greatest generation. Nobody can ever say that anybody part of that generation is dumb. They just choose not to learn this new technology. So we need to always remember that. And the customer is always right. And whether we have people on our staff that can hack video games and code all night long, and they're probably literally geniuses, when they're interacting with somebody that has no interest in learning it, you have to be able to flip that switch and make sure that they're taken care of in the way that makes sense to them. And we strive every day to try to remind everybody of that, because unfortunately our industry has become unbelievably complex and technologically challenging. And as simple as we can make it, it's easy for them because they have to explain things to me. But to continue that all the way through our company is key. In terms of rates, we are a very competitive company, and I don't see any scenario that we have the ability to raise rates. Not that that would be our first intent anyway. Our rates are going to become far more competitive in the marketplace, and I think people will be very excited if it's very easy to go look and see what we offer in parts of Pierce County that we control versus what's currently in Tacoma. We're going to be very competitive.
I know the director's making notes, and I know there's still more negotiating to do, but clearly I really appreciate the values that you communicate about customer service and other values. Of course, as public servants, we need to provide that data. So that just needs to be publicly available for verification purposes, of course. So thank you for the answers.
I thought Councilmember Hunter, did you have?
Just a quick comment. First, thank you for being here and sharing information. These are exciting times as we go into the next generation of our cable internet services. I want to make the comment, or just respond to a comment you just made about technology and customer service, and recognizing that there is a key population that is not interested in learning that. And coming out of education, we always met our students where they were at, instead of just saying it's too bad you're not at this level, and that you're aware of that and can articulate that is really welcome here. I also understand that you are offering demonstrations on your cable video service at the Holgate location, and council members and board members are willing to take you up on that. So appreciate that opportunity, and I will be following through and responding to that, and I look forward to that demonstration. So, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Board Member Flint.
Thank you. Thanks for presenting this with your vision of how things will transition. It's helpful to know how you're looking at it moving forward. My question and then a recommendation, if you will. I see a lot of communication that will help customers say, okay, where's my bill coming from? How do I pay my bill? Who do I call when there's a problem if I want to change my service? You're inheriting a system that has a lot of community ownership. You've been part of that. The Click brand really has a civic pride component to it. There's a political element to that. There's a, almost like a sports team thing. It's our sports team. So what I don't see here is sort of a communication strategy around how you're going to take on that mantle or fill that space. So I guess my question is, have you thought about sort of, I mean, I think most people, when they think of there's Click and then there's Rainier Connect, Advanced Stream, and Net Venture, they may not know who those three entities are, other than that's where you go to get internet. So have you thought about, as you transition to taking on the brand of Click, some of those less tangible but more emotional, philosophical components of what it means to have the Click brand and how you might communicate that? So in a sense, how are you going to sell, you and Rainier Connect as part of that community ownership?
That's a very good question, and it's not one we're fully prepared to talk through at this point. It's something that we've spent hours and hours on internally, and we just don't have a fully baked plan on that yet. But it's not something that we're discounting at all. What you said is absolutely true.
We also have meetings set up in the near future with employees of TPU and Click to discuss this further, to build that strategy. So we're working as a team to make sure that we hit all of those points and make sure that the community is part of that. And I just think that the best way to get that information is from the people who have been doing it. So I'm taking from them versus the other group.
Yeah. So I guess thank you for that.
Yeah.
That leads to my suggestion, which, in the hiring of the director in our most recent rate making and budget development, and then coming up with our transition to AMI, I think TPU has developed a fairly good understanding of how to engage the community using neighborhood councils and other community groups, and do a lot of targeted outreach to get people face to face and create that connection. So even beyond Click, there are folks in TPU that maybe if you're not sitting down with.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's
Good.
TPU and Click.
Okay.
So it's a whole panel of that has been set up.
Okay,
So
perfect.
it's the whole group, and it's in a month or so, I think.
Great, thank
We'll
you.
start that.
Thank you. Thanks, Mary.
Great, thank you. It looks like those are all the questions. So thank you for your presentation. We look forward to continuing this dialogue as we move forward with these negotiations. So thank you all so much for being here today.
Thank you.
And thank you, staff, for all of your work. We have one piece of business to conduct before we adjourn this meeting. Today, some of you may be aware or not be aware, but today is the last joint study session that Chair Woodrow Jones will be attending as a Public Utility Board member. Many of